immediately. This is for VIP members only.
I am a VIP member. My card is right here.
I don't care what card you have. You don't belong here.
At exactly 11:47 p.m. on a rain-soaked November evening in downtown Chicago, what should have been a quiet night of case preparation in a luxury penthouse suite turned into a 12-hour detention that would expose a billion-dollar conspiracy. The security footage and body camera recordings would later become Exhibit A in one of the largest insurance fraud prosecutions in American history. But this wasn't your typical wrongful detention video. This was different. This was a calculated trap set by some of the most powerful insurance executives in the country, designed to silence the one man who had gotten too close to the truth. What happened next would shock the Illinois State Police, spark a federal investigation involving 6 agencies, and prove that sometimes the people sworn to protect justice can become unwitting pawns in a corporate chess game. Before we continue, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. This story gets even more intense, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Character introduction. Marcus Elijah Blake was not your average 38-year-old attorney. While most lawyers his age were still grinding their way through partnerships at corporate firms, Marcus was the lead federal prosecutor for the Northern District of Illinois, one of the most prestigious positions in the Department of Justice. His credentials were staggering. Harvard Law School graduate, top 2% of his class, former clerk for Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, 7 years with the DOJ's criminal division specializing in white-collar crime. Perfect conviction record, 23 prosecutions, 23 convictions, 0 appeals overturned. But what made Marcus truly dangerous to corrupt corporations wasn't just his legal mind. It was his background before law school. He'd spent 4 years as a forensic accountant with the FBI, tracking money laundering operations across 3 continents. He could read financial statements the way most people read novels, instantly spotting patterns, inconsistencies, and hidden trails of illegal money. For the past 18 months, Marcus had been building the biggest case of his career, a RICO prosecution against Consolidated American Insurance Group, a company with $87 billion in assets and a dark secret buried in thousands of denied claims. On November 14th at approximately 8:30 p.m., Marcus Blake checked into the presidential penthouse at the Monarch Grand Hotel in downtown Chicago. The suite was spectacular, with a nightly rate of $52,000. But Marcus wasn't there for luxury. The penthouse had been booked by Jennifer Caldwell, the former chief financial officer of Consolidated American Insurance, who had agreed to become a federal witness. Jennifer had evidence of something massive, a systematic scheme to deny legitimate insurance claims, then use the saved money to fund illegal offshore investments. Jennifer was supposed to arrive at 9 p.m. with encrypted hard drives containing financial records that would prove the entire executive board knew about the fraud. The evidence would show that Consolidated American had denied over 200,000 legitimate claims in the past 5 years, totaling nearly $4 billion. Sick children denied cancer treatments. Accident victims denied surgical procedures. Families denied life insurance payouts. Also, executives could pad their offshore accounts. At 9:15 p.m., Marcus's phone buzzed. It was Jennifer. Running late. Hotel lobby in 20 minutes. They're watching me. Marcus's instincts kicked in immediately. Something was wrong. He texted back, "Do you need extraction? I can have agents there in 5 minutes." Her response came after a long pause. "No, coming up now. Don't trust hotel security." Marcus walked to the penthouse windows and looked down at the street below. Rain, traffic, nothing unusual. But Jennifer's message had triggered his prosecutor's instinct, the sense that someone was making a move he hadn't anticipated. Then the door to the penthouse burst open. The man who entered first was Detective Raymond Morrison of the Illinois State Police Financial Crimes Unit, a barrel-chested officer with 22 years on the force. Behind Morrison came 4 more officers, hands resting on their duty weapons. The last person through the door was a woman in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. Morrison's voice was hard and authoritative. "Marcus Blake, I'm Detective Morrison with the Illinois State Police. We have a warrant to search these premises and detain you for questioning regarding money laundering and insurance fraud." Marcus didn't move from his position near the window. His voice was calm. "Detective Morrison, my name is Marcus Elijah Blake. I'm a federal prosecutor with the United States Department of Justice. I'm currently in this location as part of an ongoing federal investigation. Before we go any further, I need to see your warrant, and I need to know who requested it." This is where things started to go wrong for Detective Morrison. Morrison pulled out a folded document. The warrant was issued by Judge Patricia Hendricks 4 hours ago based on evidence provided by the Illinois Department of Insurance. It alleges that you've been using this penthouse to conduct illegal financial transactions related to fraudulent insurance settlements. Marcus held out his hand. "May I see it?" Morrison handed over the warrant. Marcus read it carefully, processing every word, every clause, every name. When he looked up, there was something new in his eyes, understanding and anger. Detective Morrison, this warrant is based on false information. The Penthouse isn't registered in my name. It was booked by Jennifer Caldwell, a federal witness in a case I'm prosecuting. Whoever gave you this information knew exactly what they were doing. They lied to a judge to get you here. Morrison's expression hardened. That's a convenient story, Mr. Blake. We have bank records showing payments from your personal account to this hotel. Marcus shook his head. No, you don't. Because I've never made a payment to this hotel. I want to see those records right now. The woman in the expensive suit stepped forward. Detective Morrison, I think we should continue this conversation downtown. Mr. Blake can review all the evidence there. Marcus turned his attention to her. And who are you? She smiled thinly. Amanda Westcott. I'm a special investigator with the Illinois Department of Insurance. We've been building a case against you for 3 months, Mr. Blake. This is where Marcus realized exactly what was happening. This wasn't a mistake. This was a coordinated attack. Ms. Westcott, I'm going to ask you a direct question. Who told you I would be in this penthouse tonight? Westcott's smile didn't waver. That's part of an ongoing investigation. I'm not at liberty to discuss our sources. Marcus pulled out his phone. Then I'm calling the United States Attorney General's office. This is federal obstruction of justice. Morrison stepped forward. Sir, I need you to put the phone down. Detective Morrison, I'm making a phone call to my superior officer at the Department of Justice as required by federal law when a federal prosecutor is detained. If you interfere with that call, you're committing a federal crime. The body camera captured Morrison's hand freezing in mid-reach. You could see the confusion crossing his face. Mr. Blake, we have evidence that you're involved in criminal activity. The warrant gives us authority to detain you and prevent you from destroying evidence. Marcus's voice remained calm, but now there was steel underneath. Detective, I'm holding a Department of Justice identification card with my credentials clearly visible. I'm telling you that I'm a federal prosecutor conducting an official investigation. Your warrant is based on false information provided by people who are themselves under federal investigation. Every second you continue this detention, you're deepening your legal exposure. For the next hour, the penthouse became a battleground of legal knowledge versus institutional procedure. Marcus made his position clear. Detective, I'm not resisting. I'm not refusing to cooperate, but I have a right and a legal obligation to contact the Department of Justice. Morrison glanced at Amanda Westcott, who shook her head slightly. Detective, the warrant specifies that the suspect should be detained immediately to prevent evidence tampering. Marcus caught that glance. Ms. Westcott seems to be directing your actions, Detective Morrison. That's interesting because she's not a law enforcement officer with arrest authority. Why is she controlling a state police operation? Morrison's face flushed. She's not controlling anything. She's providing expertise on the financial crimes involved. Really? Then let me provide some expertise of my own. Marcus walked slowly to the dining table where his laptop and briefcase sat. 3 officers tensed. Marcus kept his hands visible. I'm going to show you something. I'm not reaching for a weapon. I'm reaching for documents that prove I'm telling you the truth. He pulled out a leather folder and opened it carefully. Inside was his Department of Justice identification and a document with multiple classified stamps across the top. This is a federal investigation authorization signed by the Attorney General of the United States. It authorizes me to investigate Consolidated American Insurance Group for RICO violations, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. The investigation is classified as sensitive because we believe there's been corruption of state-level insurance regulators. He let that sentence hang in the air. Morrison's eyes widened. Westcott's expression finally cracked. Marcus continued. The Illinois Department of Insurance, Ms. Westcott's employer, is specifically mentioned in this investigation as a potential co-conspirator. And now, 12 hours before I'm supposed to receive evidence that would prove that conspiracy, the Illinois Department of Insurance has obtained a warrant to detain me in the exact location where I'm conducting my investigation. Morrison looked at the document, then at Westcott. That's a serious allegation, Mr. Blake. It's not an allegation, Detective. It's a statement of fact. The room went silent. The other officers looked at each other, uncertain. Westcott's voice cut through the tension. Detective Morrison, Mr. Blake is doing exactly what guilty people do when they're caught, trying to confuse the situation. The warrant is valid. We need to proceed. Marcus turned to her directly. Ms. Westcott, what's your relationship with Robert Hastings? Westcott blinked. I don't know who that is. Robert Hastings is the Chief Legal Officer for Consolidated American Insurance Group. According to phone records I subpoenaed 3 weeks ago, he's called your direct office line 47 times in the past 6 months. That's interesting because your job is supposed to be regulating insurance companies, not taking calls from their attorneys. Westcott's face went pale. Morrison caught it. How do you have my phone records? Westcott's voice was tight. Marcus smiled for the first time. Federal subpoena. You were served this morning. And those records show a very interesting pattern. Every time Consolidated American had a major claim denial that generated complaints, you received a call from Robert Hastings within 24 hours. And every time the complaint was dismissed without investigation. Morrison held up his hand. Everyone stopped talking. He turned to his officers. Give me the room. Wait outside. The officers filed out. Only Morrison, Westcott, and Marcus remained. Morrison's voice was quiet now. Ms. Westcott, is there any truth to what Mr. Blake is saying about your relationship with Consolidated American Insurance? Detective, I resent the implication. That's not an answer. Yes or no? Marcus interrupted. Detective Morrison, I can prove everything I've said, but I need to make a phone call to the Department of Justice. One phone call, 5 minutes. If I'm lying, you can arrest me for making false statements to a law enforcement officer. I'm putting my entire career on the line. The question is Ms. Westcott willing to do the same? Morrison made a decision. Make your call, Mr. Blake, but I'm watching you the entire time. Marcus nodded and pulled out his phone. He dialed and put it on speaker. Deputy Attorney General Richardson's office. This is Marcus Blake, Federal Prosecutor, Northern District of Illinois, badge number 74291. I need to speak with Deputy Richardson immediately. Code red situation. 30 seconds later, a new voice came on. Marcus, this is Bill Richardson. What's your code red? Sir, I'm currently detained by Illinois State Police in the Monarch Grand Hotel Presidential Penthouse. Detective Raymond Morrison has a warrant alleging money laundering. I believe this is a coordinated effort by Consolidated American Insurance to interfere with the RICO investigation. Richardson's voice went cold. Put Detective Morrison on the line. Morrison took the phone. This is Detective Raymond Morrison, Illinois State Police. Detective Morrison, this is Deputy Attorney General William Richardson. Marcus Blake is conducting a classified federal investigation authorized by this office. Any detention of Mr. Blake without coordination with the Department of Justice is a violation of federal law. I'm going to have my office contact your superintendent in 3 minutes. You're going to release Mr. Blake immediately, secure that scene for federal agents who are already en route, and detain Amanda Westcott for questioning. Is that clear? Morrison's face had gone pale. Sir, on what grounds do I detain Ms. Westcott? Obstruction of justice and conspiracy to interfere with a federal investigation. Detective Morrison, let me be clear. Right now, you're a victim of false information. But if you continue this detention for 1 more minute, you become a perpetrator. Choose wisely. The call ended. Morrison stood there, his face a mixture of anger and humiliation. He turned to Westcott. Ms. Westcott, I need you to sit down and not move. Westcott's composure shattered. Detective, you're making a terrible mistake. That phone call doesn't prove anything. Marcus walked to his laptop and turned it around so Morrison could see the screen. Detective, this is the secure portal for the Department of Justice. You can see my case file for the Consolidated American investigation right here. You can see the Attorney General's signature. You can see the list of targets in the investigation. Morrison scrolled slowly. His finger stopped on one name. Amanda Westcott, Special Investigator, Illinois Department of Insurance. Suspected of receiving bribes and obstructing insurance fraud investigations. He looked up at Westcott. You're on his suspect list. Westcott stood up quickly. I'm leaving. Morrison's hand went to his weapon. Ma'am, sit down. We're going to wait for the federal agents. Westcott's hand moved to her purse. Marcus saw it. Detective, she's reaching for her phone. She's going to warn someone. Morrison grabbed Westcott's purse before she could open it. Inside was her phone, already unlocked, with a text message typed but not sent. Blake knows everything. Extraction failed. Burn the files. Morrison read the message, then looked at the recipient name. Robert Hastings. The detective's expression shifted to fury. You used me. You lied to get that warrant, and you used me to try to shut down a federal investigation. Morrison pulled out his handcuffs. Amanda Westcott, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. 20 minutes later, the penthouse was full of FBI agents. Jennifer Caldwell arrived with 2 agents escorting her, carrying a titanium briefcase handcuffed to her wrist. Inside were the hard drives that would destroy Consolidated American Insurance. The lead FBI agent was Sarah Chen. Mr. Blake, we've secured the scene. Amanda Westcott is being transported to federal custody. We've also picked up Robert Hastings for questioning. He was at O'Hare trying to board a private jet to the Cayman Islands. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. He ran. That's consciousness of guilt. Chen nodded. We've also executed search warrants at Consolidated American's headquarters, 18 simultaneous raids across 6 states. We've seized servers and frozen offshore accounts totaling over $2 billion. Over the next 72 hours, the full scope became clear. Amanda Westcott had been on Consolidated American's payroll for 8 years, receiving monthly payments of $25,000. Her job was to make sure complaints about denied insurance claims never turned into official investigations. The FBI raids uncovered a network of corrupted insurance regulators in 12 states. The hard drives Jennifer brought contained everything: internal emails showing executives discussing which claims to deny based on profitability, spreadsheets tracking money saved by denying legitimate claims, audio recordings of meetings where leadership laughed about gaming the system. But the most damning evidence was a document called Project Fortress. It was a detailed plan to neutralize threats to the company's fraud scheme. Marcus Blake's name was at the top with a note: Federal Prosecutor, Northern District, Building RICO Case. Estimated indictment date, November 15th. Recommended countermeasure, discredit and detain using compromised state resources. They had planned everything. They knew Marcus would be in that penthouse. They knew Jennifer was turning witness, and they had almost succeeded. The FBI discovered why November 14th had been chosen. Consolidated American's board had an emergency meeting scheduled for November 15th to transfer $3 billion offshore and dissolve subsidiaries. If Marcus had been detained for even a week, the money would have disappeared and evidence destroyed. One day. They had been one day away from escaping justice. The legal proceedings took 18 months. Marcus personally prosecuted the case. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict was unanimous on all counts. The chief executive officer, chief financial officer, and chief legal officer were each sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Amanda Westcott took a plea deal. In exchange for testifying, she received 12 years. Robert Hastings, who orchestrated the attack on Marcus, received 32 years. The judge specifically cited his abuse of the legal system as an aggravating factor. In total, 47 people were charged. 39 were convicted. The remaining 8 took plea deals. Detective Raymond Morrison was cleared of any wrongdoing. The DOJ concluded he had acted in good faith with false information. He was transferred to the State Police Training Academy, where he now teaches officers to recognize manipulation by white-collar criminals. He uses his experience in that penthouse as the primary case study. Morrison and Marcus eventually had coffee together. Morrison apologized. Marcus told him there was nothing to apologize for. You were a good cop who got played by bad people. When you realized what was happening, you made the right call. That takes courage. The scandal triggered a complete overhaul of insurance regulation. Congress passed the Insurance Accountability and Transparency Act, requiring public financial disclosures for regulators and prohibiting payments from companies they regulated. The Department of Justice created a permanent insurance fraud task force staffed with prosecutors, FBI agents, and forensic accountants dedicated to investigating systematic insurance fraud. Consolidated American Insurance was dissolved. Its assets were liquidated to create a victim compensation fund. Over 60,000 people who had been wrongfully denied claims received settlements totaling nearly $5 billion. But perhaps the most important change was cultural. The trial had been televised. Millions watched the evidence unfold. They saw emails where executives joked about denying claims to cancer patients. They heard corrupt regulators laughing about protecting the company. They read documents showing how a corporation tried to destroy a federal prosecutor. People got angry, and that anger translated into action. Class action lawsuits were filed against other insurance companies. State attorneys general launched investigations. Consumer advocacy groups formed to help people fight denied claims. The insurance industry would never operate the same way again. Marcus Elijah Blake continued as a federal prosecutor for 3 more years, winning 6 more major cases. In 2028, he was appointed as a federal judge for the Northern District of Illinois. At 41, he became one of the youngest federal judges in the country. He also started a nonprofit called Project Fortress Defense, ironically named after the plan created to destroy him. The organization provides legal assistance to people fighting denied insurance claims. Jennifer Caldwell received full immunity and entered witness protection for 2 years. She now works as a financial crimes consultant, helping the FBI identify fraud schemes. She's assisted in 17 major investigations. Amanda Westcott is currently serving her sentence at FCI Aliceville. She's scheduled for release in 2033. Robert Hastings is at FCI Coleman. His earliest possible release date is 2051. He'll be 78 years old. Detective Raymond Morrison retired in 2030 after 30 years of service. He now runs a consulting business helping law enforcement agencies identify manipulation by white-collar criminals. Let's talk about the bigger picture. This story isn't just about Marcus Blake and Consolidated American Insurance. It's about the weaponization of law enforcement by powerful corporations. It's about how corruption doesn't always look like a briefcase full of cash. Sometimes it looks like a respectable investigator making phone calls to a corporate lawyer. It's about how the system can be turned against the very people trying to protect it. Think about what almost happened that night. A federal prosecutor, working legitimately, following every rule, came within hours of being arrested and having his case destroyed. Not because he did anything wrong, but because a corporation with billions of dollars decided he was a threat and corrupted the systems meant to protect justice. And here's the terrifying part. This happens more than you think. Most of the time, there's no dramatic reversal. Most of the time, the person being targeted doesn't have Marcus's combination of legal knowledge, resources, and determination. Most of the time, the corruption works. The investigation gets shut down. The prosecutor gets discredited. And the criminals walk away. The insurance angle makes this even more disturbing. We're talking about sick people being denied medical care, accident victims denied treatment, families losing homes because life insurance companies refused legitimate claims, and a regulatory system that was supposed to prevent this had been corrupted from the inside. Most people don't know insurance law in detail. Insurance companies count on that ignorance. They count on people being too intimidated to fight back. But when you encounter someone like Marcus Blake, someone with expertise who knows exactly how the system works, the power dynamic shifts completely, knowledge becomes the equalizer. So what's the lesson from all of this? First, understand that corruption is rarely obvious. It hides behind legitimate processes, official documents, and people with impressive titles. Amanda Westcott was a state investigator. The warrant was signed by a real judge. But the entire thing was built on lies. Second, documentation is everything. Marcus didn't just tell Morrison he was a federal prosecutor. He showed official documents, case files, and authorization letters. He had evidence. In high-stakes situations, being able to prove what you're saying can be the difference between freedom and detention. Third, know your rights in detail. Marcus knew exactly what the law said, exactly what Morrison could and couldn't do, and exactly how to navigate the situation without escalating it while still protecting his investigation. Fourth, recognize when you're being played. Marcus figured out within minutes that this wasn't legitimate. He saw the inconsistencies and understood he was looking at a coordinated attack. That awareness saved his investigation. Fifth, courage matters. It would have been easier for Marcus to just comply and fight it later. But he understood the stakes and was willing to take the risk of standing his ground. One man, one night, 12 hours, and everything changed. That's the power of standing your ground when you know you're right. That's the importance of having the knowledge and courage to challenge corruption. That's what happens when someone refuses to be intimidated by power and money. Marcus Blake's story could have ended very differently. He could have been arrested, his case derailed, and Consolidated American could have escaped justice. Thousands of victims would never have received compensation. Corrupt regulators would still be protecting fraudulent companies, and one of the biggest corporate fraud schemes in history would have remained hidden. But that's not what happened, because one federal prosecutor, standing in a luxury penthouse with armed officers demanding his compliance, made the decision to fight back with the only weapon he had, the truth. Final question for you. What's one thing you learned from this story that you didn't know before? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. This story matters because it's not just about Marcus Blake. It's about every person wrongfully denied an insurance claim and felt powerless. It's about every law enforcement officer manipulated into serving corporate interests. It's about every whistleblower who risked everything to expose corruption. Marcus Blake's story shows that you can challenge corruption and win. You can stand up to powerful corporations and prevail. You can expose systematic fraud and force change. And sometimes, even when the entire system seems designed to crush you, knowledge, courage, and determination can overcome money and power. Not every story ends this way. Not every confrontation with corruption results in justice. But this one did, and that matters. That's Marcus Blake's legacy. Not just winning one case or sending executives to prison, but showing millions of people that the system can be challenged, that corruption can be exposed, and that sometimes, against all odds, justice actually wins. This is the story of how a federal attorney exposed a $1 billion insurance scam while detained in a $50,000 penthouse. But more than that, it's a story about what happens when courage meets corruption, when knowledge confronts power, and when one person's refusal to back down changes everything.